The end of The Mandalorian Episode 1 had a huge reveal. Luckily, the internet has done what it does and uncovered something very interesting regarding that ending, and it has given me an incredible idea for a Star Wars theory. It's like the news, but for nerds. Today's shout out goes to Ron Coleman. Indeed, Susan Sarandon did the voice of the therapist in the Pickle Rick episode. Make sure you stay at the end of this video where we will ask another nerd card question. Okay, guys, right off the bat, I have to say spoiler warning for The Mandalorian Episode 1. If you have not seen that episode, get on out of here. Although I think pretty much everybody on the planet has seen this episode that wants to at this point, because that's the speed at which the internet works nowadays. Pretty crazy. And whoo, baby, am I excited, because the best thing about this, man, with new Star Wars is we get new Star Wars theories. I have a very cool theory for you guys today. I'm very excited to talk about it. So let's go over the end of the first episode. This all has to do with the little baby Yoda. Of course, the Mandalorian is hired to do this job. It's sort of off the books. It's high, profile, deep pockets, very strange. He goes to find this guy that is apparently part of the Imperial remnant. The Empire is dead at this point. We know that's been established even in the show. The Mandalorian can't accept Imperial credits because the Empire is gone. And so he takes this job, and there's a doctor there. The doctor wants this person, this bounty brought in alive. The Imperial dude, played by Werner Herzog, is like, look, I want it alive, but, confirmation of death is acceptable for a lower price. Now, I need to shout out Numian Prime, who I believe is the first person to post this on Twitter. This was picked up in the Star Wars Leaks subreddit by Ugnaught. And guys, basically people discovered that on the doctor's arm, that patch that he has there, that patch comes from Kamino. Now, Kamino is the planet from Attack of the Clones that was literally the place where they created the clone army. So the Kamino people, they're the cloners, damn good ones, as Dax would say, right? And so that is a huge hint at something really wild going on with this baby Yoda. So what do we think is going on here? Well, it's really interesting because we have a lot of the past and we have a lot of the future with The Mandalorian, right? We know how things end up going, at least in part, and we know what happened before. So let's talk about the Imperial Remnant for a second, and this will set up the stage for where I'm going with this theory. Now, at this point in time, there were different Imperial people trying to self-appoint as the Emperor. They were wanting to take back control. And if you just listen to the words that Werner Herzog is saying, not only in this episode, but in the trailers and the promotion, he's talking about restoring the natural order. He's questioning on whether or not the galaxy is in a better place after the revolution, and he's suggesting that it definitely is not. So they obviously want to return to power. Now, I think it's really important to point out here that Dr. Pershing wants the young baby Yoda alive, and I think the simple line of thought there is, okay, this guy's a cloner. He's either from Kamino or works on Kamino or something to that effect. This guy obviously wants the baby Yoda alive because he wants to clone the baby Yoda. Now, interestingly, Werner Herzog wants the baby Yoda alive. I mean, he's clearly willing to pay much more for the baby Yoda alive, but he's also willing to accept the death of this thing for a lower price. So that's really interesting. Now, the IG unit, IG-11, was also hired through the guild to take this bounty, but IG-11 was actually hired strictly to kill this baby Yoda. And my gut tells me that that is not coming from Werner Herzog. Werner Herzog is clearly willing to pay who he thinks is the best, the most, to bring the baby back alive. And so I don't think that Werner Herzog wants this baby dead. My thing is, maybe this bounty is coming from someone that's actually trying to prevent whatever the Empire wants to do with this baby Yoda. That a more or less good person hired the IG-11 unit to kill this baby to prevent it from being cloned or whatever. So a couple of things we got to get into here. Now, number one, what would be the point of cloning Yoda? Well, I think it's pretty obvious, right? They may want a clone army of Yoda-like Force beings. And of course, Yoda was very strong with the Force. That would be terrifying. You guys ever seen those dark Yoda images out there online? Imagine like an army of dark Yodas. I'm pretty sure that's game over. No way you're winning. However, it is also possible that they are trying to take out the midichlorians or create some sort of a hybrid and maybe make some kind of a Frankenstein version of a Force user. Now, here's something important to note. George Lucas was consulted about the little baby Yoda, and in fact, we're pretty dang sure that there's going to be much more of these Yoda-like creatures in future episodes. They will name the species, and they're going to get into the lore about these species. But from what we know in Attack of the Clones, or rather, I think the Phantom Menace, we see that Yoda has the highest midichlorian count of anybody besides Anakin, or at least that's what's implied with the conversation with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, where they say not even Master Yoda has a midichlorian count so high. And it is established in canon that certain species have more midichlorians or more of a connection to the Force. The Loth wolves from Lothal really stick out to me. These creatures were so strong with the Force they could sort of teleport our heroes to different places. There was a weird connection thing where perhaps Kanan, as a Force ghost or more like a consciousness, was in some of these wolves, and so these wolves have way more of a connection to the Force than something like a Trandoshan, right? So this is a thing that is established in canon. It's possible that the Yoda species has very high midichlorian counts. They're very strong with the Force. We also know from the sequel trilogy that the idea of a clone army was at least on the table. Kylo is talking to Hux about how maybe they should do a clone army, kind of suggesting that this was something the First Order was thinking about, whether or not they wanted to recruit young people and create these stormtroopers, or they literally wanted to go with clones. That was on the table. And we also know about these Sith troopers in Star Wars Episode 9. Now, not a lot is being said about the Sith troopers in the official promotion, but there's some stuff out there from rumors and leaks and some stuff that we're gathering with regards to these Sith troopers. But we think it's really interesting that they exist out in the unknown region. There are apparently a ton of them out there, and they have this insignia of the Sith, right? Not the Empire, not the First Order. They have this insignia of the Sith. Also interesting, the design on these helmets is really weird because from the front-facing side, they actually look more like clone troopers, but from the side, they look like normal stormtroopers. I actually think there's really interesting things going on with the design of the Sith troopers, but immediately when I saw that clone trooper look, when you're looking straight on at them, I was like, whoa, what if these are clones? What if they take off the helmets and they're all Anakin Skywalkers? I mean, that would blow my mind. In fact, when it comes to Episode 9, many of the people out there theory crafting and just trying to figure out what's going on with that film, we believe that Palpatine was likely pulling the strings this entire time. I think that if he survived somehow from the Battle of Endor, and whether or not he physically survived or he survived kind of like Sauron in The Lord of the Rings, that doesn't matter because even Sauron was pulling strings before he actually physically manifested himself, right? So either way, we believe that Palpatine was pulling the strings, rebuilding the Empire or the First Order after the Battle of Endor. After the loss of the Empire, Palpatine was doing like some shady things behind the scenes to sort of reestablish eventually this new empire. Palpatine had used a clone army before, so there's no reason to think that he wouldn't use a clone army again. And what this really comes down to is, what is going on with this Imperial remnant in The Mandalorian? Are they acting independently? Are they acting under the direction of Sheev Palpatine? Are they acting under the direction of somebody else that might be working for the contingency? I mean, there's been a lot of speculation about Gallius Rax, Ray Sloan, some of these other characters we meet in different novels or things like that, but there was certainly things going on, and it is very possible that all of this will be sort of tied together, and that ultimately whatever's going on with this Yoda character will tie into a larger thread of something that either the Imperial Remnant, the contingency, the First Order, or Palpatine was working on. And so my personal theory here is that Kamino itself, which remember was erased from the Jedi archives, likely by Sifo Dyas or maybe Palpatine or somebody, that whole asset was completely erased from the Jedi archives. Not many people, even in the Republic, knew what Kamino was or where it was at. And so I believe that after the Empire took over the Jedi Temple, they went in there, they sort of purged the records, they took their information. Like, remember, even the map, even parts of the map that lead to Ahch-To and Luke Skywalker, they have that. The First Order has that from the archives of the old Jedi Empire, or the old Jedi Order, and the Imperial archives, right? So there's something to that, and I think it's very possible that Kamino was put under like occupation by whatever the new empire is, or a piece of the Imperial remnant. And I personally believe that they're not trying to clone here, but they're trying to basically be able to infuse people with the Force, or with the ability to use the Force and strengthen their soldiers. Because think about it. I think one of the big reasons they went with stormtroopers rather than clone troopers is because clone troopers were just super expensive. They're expensive to make. They're expensive to maintain. It's a very very expensive, involved process. And so I believe that eventually the Empire started just recruiting people into the army as stormtroopers because it's easier to recruit than it is to literally build a human being, right? And so maybe what we're going to see is that these Sith troopers in The Rise of Skywalker, they're humans, but maybe they've been infused or injected with something to make them better, to give them slight Force abilities or maybe resistance to the Force from Jedi. Because look, this Jedi Sith thing, this is something that both people in the Empire and people in the Republic are slowly coming to grips with, right? Not a lot of people knew Palpatine was a Sith, but that information comes out more and more after the fall of the Empire, and I think that certain people were like super down with that and were like, okay, well, let's double down on this, while other people didn't really agree with that. I mean, the First Order themselves definitely aligns with the dark side, right? Like, they use kyber crystals in their weapons. Kylo Ren is literally in charge of this whole sect of the First Order that is religiously dedicated to the dark side itself. Snoke is a notorious dark side user. He's flinging Hux around on the ship. Everybody knows what's going on. And so I think that all of these pieces are starting to come together. Now, it's just a theory, but I want to know what you think about this, guys. What do you think's going on with the cloner? This guy, this human being, and the Camino thing on his jacket, the fact that they want this baby Yoda, and the fact that we know we get the Sith troopers in Star Wars Episode 9, and that the Emperor does return. I think there's a lot of cool pieces here, possibly leading to a pretty cool puzzle, but I want to know, what do you think about this crazy theory? Answer that in the comment section below. And now let's check the nerd card before we get out of here. I want to know, what is the name of that very valuable, maybe sacred medal that the Mandalorian is gifted by Werner Herzog in the first episode of The Mandalorian? It's a very big deal. What is the name of that medal? Answer that question in the comment section below. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.